As I went over your homework, I noticed that two examples provide some common mistakes, so I'm going to go over those two examples with you right now. Now we're doing solving systems of equations by graphing. You notice I have the steps written off to the side here. Graph your y-intercept, use your slope to graph 2 more points, and then you want to ultimately identify where the points intersect. Let's take a look here. So our first equation, I've got for y-intercept, -1. So I'm going to graph that first. That's important. Graph -1 first. Next, I'm going to use my slope, -1/2. That means I'm going to go down 1 and then over 2. 1, 2. And then I can make my line. And here's always a good check to make sure you graphed your line well. I have a negative slope, which means my line should be going down. You notice my line is going down. That's always a good check. Always check to make sure that your line's going in the right direction. All right, for the next one here, my y-intercept is -4. So I'm going to go down to -4. Now for my slope, here's where I saw some mistakes. It is 1/4. What does that mean? It means I'm going to go from here. I'm going to go up 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, right about here. So I'm going to graph it just like so. And you'll notice we have a point of intersection. Now, if I graph this perfectly, you would notice that it does end up going there, trust me. Because if you notice this does go down, let's see, I'm going to do this in green. Down 1 over 2 leads us right here. Up 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4 leads us right here. So now I am not done. A lot of us were just leaving our answers like this. You can't do that. You got to identify what the ordered pair is. So we look at the x-axis. Where's this point falling? 4. Let's take a look at the y-axis. Where is it falling? -3. So this is the answer to the problem. We use graphing to get to the answer. Just drawing the lines isn't enough. You have to identify your answer. All right, and here's another one that a number of people made mistakes on. Let's start with this one, y equals -1. They don't give us a lot of information here. I'm going to start at -1. Now, here's the thing. When it's y equals -1, a lot of people aren't sure what to do here. Here's one way I approach it. What you want is you want a line where every y value is going to be -1. You'll notice that my y-axis is right here. So let's see. I started with -1. If I put a dot right here, guess what? My y value is still -1. Here, still -1. If I go all the way over here, it's still -1. So ultimately, you get a horizontal line. That throws a lot of people off because they see y and they think, oh, it must be horizontal. Or I mean, it must be vertical, excuse me. But it's actually horizontal. Again, here's that reason. Because since y equals -1, we want a line where every single y value is going to be -1. You'll notice that line gives that to us. Next, we have -5/2 for our slope, and we have 4 as our y-intercept. So I'm going to start at 4, right up here. Now for my slope, that means I got to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1, 2. That gives me my next line here. I am not done. This is not the solution. The solution is where they cross, which is right here. That's why we graph these. We want to find that solution. So I have to write my ordered pair, which would be on the x-axis, I'm looking at 2. The y-axis, I'm looking at -1. I could even rewrite this, and this is probably a good idea to get into this habit. X equals 2, y equals -1. That's the solution to this system. What that means is I can plug in 2 and -1 into both of these, and it's going to work. Over here, what it's telling me is I can plug in 4 for x and -3 for y in both of these equations, and it's going to work. That's why we do it like this. We graph it, so it's a little easier to do it that way. We don't have to do a lot of math, but ultimately you need those x and y values. That's really important. So if you didn't do that, identify those ordered pairs. And if you made mistakes on